Shalom, family. I've been going through all week trying to figure out what this week's topic will be about. And after researching and looking at a lot of things that's going on around us, I've noticed how things are shifting more and more to get us prepared for the end. Now, since there's nothing new under the sun, that means things that we were going to be getting prepared for, the Lord tried to show us in examples in other areas. So we want to find out and see, how did they handle situations when it came down to them, their faith being tested and being tried? There have been times where my faith has been tested and tried, and times when I really didn't know what to do during those moments. During those moments, I found myself finally being able to turn back to the Word. But at the moment when you're first going through, that's the last thing that's on your mind. What you really want to do is you want to get answers. You want to search for answers anywhere that you can possibly get it. You will reach in the areas of media. You will reach in the areas of people beside you. You will reach in the area of people that you feel like know more about the situation than you know about, just to get you to some type of clarity of whatever you're going through at that moment. Not saying they're fully bringing you to truth, but they're giving you somewhat of a relief. But is it somewhat of a relief that we're looking for, or is it a full relief that we're looking for? Are we looking for full clarity of the situation, or are we looking for that quick fix of that situation? So this is a story that I'm going into, which is in the book of Daniel. And if I had to go into a subject, my subject would be, I refuse to bow. Because if you look at the things that's going on around us, there is a lot of worshiping going on. There's a lot of falseness that's going on. There's a lot of things where people are searching for truth and reaching for truth, but just not able to find it yet. So they're searching for truth in all the wrong places, hoping that it will lead them to a destination of where they're trying to get to. Now, they want to be able to be rooted and grounded in something. Don't get me wrong, because we all want peace. Even the Lord wants you to have peace. He wishes above that you have peace and that you prosper and be of good cheer. So we're going to find out how it is to really stand on faith. Regardless of who's doing things around you, you got to still be able to stand on the word of Yahuwah, no matter what's going on around you. And there are very few people that can actually do that. Some people don't even want to give up their life when it comes down to life situations. Some people enjoy and love the things that's going on around them more than anything, that they just don't want to let it go. So within the story of Daniel, we're going to find out and see what happened with them to make them stand on the word of Yahuwah, stand on the word of Elohim, and see how they handle it, to see when you go through these different situations, how you can possibly handle it too. Do we all handle it the right way? No, we don't. We really don't. So let's find out and see from the sword, from the word, and see what happens within this story. Now in Daniel, this is during the time when King Joachim was ruling. He had ruled for 3 years, and during his rule, he was over Judea, and there became a siege. Nebuchadnezzar besieged him by taking over the kingdom of Jerusalem, and he was the king of Babylon during that time. Who allowed this to happen? The word says that Yahuwah allowed these things to happen to Judah during this time. How do I know that he allowed it to happen? Well, why don't we turn over to Jeremiah first and find out and see that these things were foretold before it came about by the prophet Jeremiah. Okay, in Jeremiah 25 verse 8, you'll find out, and it says, "Therefore thus said Yahuwah of hosts, because ye have not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, said Yahuwah, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant." Wow. He called him his servant. Why do you think he called him his servant? Because of the disobedient. He uses other people. Remember, I told you we are all vessels. So other people can be used to bring about a change. He used King Nebuchadnezzar to bring about a change, to show them what they was doing. So here he is. He's saying, "And King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land, and against the habitation thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, make them and astonishment and hissing and perpetual desolations. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of murmureth, and the voice of gladness, and the voice of the bridegroom, and the voice of the bride, of the sound of the milestones, and the light of the candle. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. This was during the time of Jeremiah when this 70-year decree was spoken out. It hadn't even came to pass yet. Do you think that they would have remembered this and passed this down to their kids and say, listen, don't disobey Yahuwah, because if you disobey Yahuwah, he already spoke in the past that these things are going to come and happen to us if we don't listen and do what we're supposed to do. And once again, we got to be stubborn people, following our own thing, doing our own thing. What I said once before is when we become a part of a culture, we start picking up the things that other people do. We want to worship this God. We want to worship that God. We want to be one fullness with God. We want to become gods ourselves. We feel like things are supposed to go our way. And if it don't go our way, then we start shifting and changing to make it go our way. This is what was going on during the time of Daniel. Nobody was listening. Everybody was in their own area, living their own life without God, wasn't acknowledging when God was blessing them. So now we're at the time of Daniel when this stuff is really coming to pass. Daniel and the other young men are young during this time. So King Nebuchadnezzar comes in and he takes over and he seizes the vessels of the Lord. Not only did he take the vessels of the Lord, but he also took the vessels and stuck them, put it in the land of Shinar. Now, once he put it in the land of Shinar, he sent his royal guard to go pick out young men. His royal guard's name was Ashpenaz, who was over the royal officers. So the king appointed him to bring in children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the prince. So I want you to bring in the royal seed. I want you to bring in those who are prince. I want you to also bring in the kids who were taken over from the Israelites. And I want you to actually raise these boys up. But I only want a certain type of kids. These children have to be without any mark, flawless. Meaning when you look at them, they have to look perfect. They have to be well liked, meaning no other kids around them can be picking on them or dislike them. They have to be liked by everybody. They have to be very wise, knowing the things that they're talking about, understanding what they're talking about. They have to be acknowledgeable, and they have to be comprehensive of the things of science. Why comprehensive of the things of science? Because back then they were teaching astrology and science back then too. So you need to know how to read and understand these things. Because if I'm putting you in a wisdom area, you need to know what you're talking to the people about. You also had to be skilled enough to stand in the king's palace. So meaning you can't be a pushover. You can't be a chump. You got to be able to handle your own around other young men. You had to also be teachable and could learn the language of the Chaldeans. Among the children that were taken from Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Each one of their names were names that were connected to Yahuwah. Daniel's name meant Elohim is my judge. Hananiah's name meant Jehovah has been gracious. Mishael's name meant who is what Elohim is. Azariah's name meant Jehovah has helped. But once they became a part of the Babylonian kingdom, or which used to be Jerusalem's kingdom or Judea's kingdom, all of a sudden their names were changed. Daniel's name became Belteshazzar. Hananiah's name became Shadrach. Mishael's name became Meshach. And Azariah's name became Abednego. Each one of them were connected to the pagan gods. Belshazzar's name meant Bel protect him, which Bel was known as Marduk, who was associated with fertility and vegetation. Shadrach, which was once Hananiah's name, meant the commander of Achan, or Aku, which Aku was the Babylonian god of the moon. One thing about each one of these guys, they are always connected either to a sun god or a moon god or a moon goddess. And Meshach, who was once Michelle, his name became who is what Aku is. Abednego, which was once Azariah, his name became the servant of Nebo. Nebo is the god of wisdom in the Babylonian kingdom. Now, we're going to go over to Daniel chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. It says, Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was 80 cubits, and breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Durai, in the province of Babylon. Now, meaning this statue that he created, this image that he created, was 90 feet tall, and the width of it was 3 yards, or 9 feet long. Here it is. Daniel had just given him a couple of chapters ago the interpretation of a dream that he was having, that his own magi couldn't even tell him what the dream was about, that he was trying to kill off everybody because of this dream that he had. And part of this dream showed Babylon as the head, and the head was golden. So here it is, King Nebuchadnezzar, after knowing that Babylon was the head and it was golden, decided to create him a full-fledged statue of himself as being a golden statue that he wanted everybody to worship. Now, Dura was the area of the province of Babylon, but it was the area where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stayed. It was the area where they were the guards, a part of the kingdom in that province. Where it is, Daniel was closer to the palace than where they were. This is the reason why when it became time, when everything came down to them having to worship this golden image of King Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel wasn't anywhere in sight during this decree. So we're moving along on to verse 2. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the prince, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So here it is, when you're doing something, you feel like you don't did something big, first thing you want to do is showboat. You want to bring everybody that's around you to see what you don't created, so that they themselves can know that you are over them, you are greater than them, you are always going to be greater than them. This is what I've done. This is what I want y'all to see. In verse 4, it says, Then the prince and the governors and the captains and the judges and the treasurers and counselors, the sheriff and all the rulers of the province gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, To you it is commanded, all people, nation, and language. So here it is. It was just like somebody standing up to make an announcement. That's what the herald was. He was saying, Hear ye, hear you. Come one, come all. Every person, every nation, every tongue. This is what's going to happen. That at what time you hear the sound of the signet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. So every time you hear this music, everybody is going to fall down and worship. Everybody that's in the providence, no matter what you're doing, you got to stop what you're doing so you can fall down and worship. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? End times, same thing that the false God is going to do. The same thing the false Christ is going to do. He's going to get us to a point where we have to bow down and worship him. But right now, at this particular time, you're not ready. Everything has to fall in line. Everything has to take place so that you can know, wait a minute, this is the actual Messiah that don't came. This is the actual Christ. Look at all the stuff that he's doing, which is just like the today's world now. Everybody's trying to put themselves in a spiritual realm so that they can tap into the spiritual side, not knowing once you tap completely in, now you're susceptible to the things that's going on around you that the enemy is getting you prepared for, so that every knee will bow, but you're bowing for the wrong person. You won't even know that it's the wrong person at the time, because the Lord says once you start to fall privy and fall into the line of the deception, he's going to give you over to that reprobate mind. You're not going to even recognize that you have fallen down the wrong way unless he pulls you out of the darkness. So let's find out and see if everybody's going to actually stand for what the king is actually saying to them. Whosoever falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. So the enemy also later on is setting it up that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, oh, he's going to destroy you. Destruction is coming your way. That's if you're not covered. If you're not covered, then yeah, you're going to fall in that line of destruction, and that's where you're going to stay until that actual full judgment comes to pass. Therefore, at the time when all the people heard the sound of the instruments, all the people, the nation, and the language fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar, the king, had set up. Everybody fell in line. Nobody was looking to do nothing different. Like I said, when you see people around you that's doing the same thing all at the same time, you don't want to feel like the odd man out. So you're doing the same thing. You feel like this is what you're supposed to be doing. You feel like it's right instead of it actually being wrong. But not everybody at that particular moment felt that it was right. Therefore, at the time concerning the Chaldeans came near and cursed the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Don't this sound just like the instigators? They're standing on the sideline feeling like, why these certain people still standing? These certain people choosing not to bow down. Did they not hear the decree that went out of the king? That if you don't bow down, then you're going to get thrown into the fiery furnace? We need to go tell on them. The tattletellers don't ran to the king, and then they come in humbly, like they know that the king is gonna bring this to pass if we just put it on real sweet sounding. So they came in and said, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, has made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the instruments shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whosoever falleth not down and worship, that he shall be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Why you got to remind the king about what the decree he already sent out? He already know what he said to the people, but your thing is you trying to rub it in that there are actually some people out there that ain't listening to you, old king. There's some people out there that's choosing not to bow down to the image that you set before them, and they choosing not to worship. What you gonna do about that, king? What you gonna say about that? You gotta do something, because too many people looking at you, especially us. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. So here it is, they put everything out on Front Street. They ain't just come and say that they're not falling down to the golden image to worship. They also threw it in that they're not even worshiping any of the other gods that you don't set up before them. They're choosing not to follow anything that you don't put out. They ain't following you at all, king, but they in your providence. They ruling over your area. They're your own guards, ain't even following the rules. So how you expect for the rest of the people to follow the rules if they choosing not to follow the rules? Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They brought these men before the king. So here it is. The enemy don't rear it up. They don't put it on good enough The way he don't got furious. Oh, they ain't finna listen to me? Oh, no, this not finna happen. Oh, what I said, it is true. My word stands. They gonna have to do what I said do. Bring these men before me. So those same do-gooders, those same people who came and told, they would trust and believe, they were the same ones who made sure they went and got Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Oh, the king wants you. Oh, don't worry about it. No, this ain't nothing serious. This is normal guard business. Just come and see what he wants. So here it is. They make it before King Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar speaks and says unto them, is it true? Oh, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I set up? So here it is. He really didn't want to believe once they came before him. He really didn't want to believe what the other people were saying. He wanted them to prove them wrong. So let me know if this is true. I mean, I know this ain't what's going on. I know you following the rules. You serving the other gods, right? You bowing down to the image just like everybody else when the music go off, right? So this is Shadrach and Meshach response. He hits them up to make them know this is what the rules is. Just so you didn't just in case you had a misunderstanding of what it actually was, let me repeat it back to you. Now if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sounds of the instruments of all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that Elohim that shall deliver you out of my hands? Now the king don't got real bold with this. Not only did you tell them that they need to fall down and just worship your gods and worship the image that you don't created, but basically you don't spoke against the Elohim. You don't spoke against the one true God and say, nah, ain't nobody gonna deliver, your God can't deliver you out of my hands. Elohim can't deliver you out of my hands. Can't nobody pull you out of this. So they had a choice to make. Let's see where the choice go. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. So meaning we ain't scared of you. We know who we serve. Or we gonna tell you exactly what we not finna do. If it be so, our Elohim, who we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. And if he deliver us out of thine hands, O king, let it be so. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods. We will not serve thy little Elohims. We will not serve the golden image which you have set up. We're just not going to do that. We're not finna defile our God just because you don't set this into motion and everybody else doing it. We're not doers just because we see other people doing it. We're not the type of people that follow a crowd. No, we're going to follow our Lord into the end of time. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his vision was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake the command that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was to be heated. So here it is. He was being cordial with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He was being nice with them, smiling big as day, just to let them know, listen, I know y'all ain't trying to come against me. When the music go off, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and bow this time in front of me so I can see that you're not trying to defile me. Then you'll be able to go on your way. But if you choose not to, then, I'm going to have to put you in the fiery furnace. But when they got smart with him, and let him know that we're not going to do what you said do. And not only are we not going to do what you said do, if God chooses to deliver us, he delivers us. But if he don't, we still ain't bowing down to you. So when they said that, his whole countenance changed. His whole face expression changed. And he got angry. Meaning you was able to see it very visibly. He was out of his character. His character around most people, he's supposed to carry himself well and be as royalty carries themselves. But at this particular time, oh no, all royalty was set aside. You don't stepped on my toes, and I can't allow this to happen in front of my people. So heat up the fiery furnace 7 more times than normal, and we're gonna see if they can actually handle this. And he commanded to the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, and their hats, and their other garments were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. So here it is. The word is letting you know that they were fully clothed from head to toe to be put into this fiery furnace. They were also bound, meaning they couldn't escape. They were bound and being laid right on in them. Therefore, because the king commanded, the commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flames of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These flames were so hot that on the way going, the strong, mighty men that he chose to take them in, or to take them as far as they could possibly go, got consumed before they even got to the normal threshold of being able to release a person into the fiery furnace. And these three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the fiery furnace. Fell down. Something caused them to fall down. They didn't fall down because they was being consumed. No. They fell down because of what they saw. They fell down because of whom they saw that was in there at that particular time. And once they fell down into a worship area, it didn't say that they had to really be shoved in there. They walked the rest of the way in. They trusted and believed in Elohim to the fullest. How many people can actually say that they stand on Yahuwah's word, that they actually trust him to the fullest, that regardless if it takes their life, they're going to go ahead and go through it? Not get distracted because of the things that's going on around you. Not be conformed to this world because of the things that's going on around you. And you feel like for some strange reason you're missing out because you're not doing what others are doing. No, they didn't care about that at all. All that mattered to them is that they did what the will of the Father said. And the will of the Father told them not to worship any other God. No matter where you end up at, even if you end up in another kingdom, up under somebody else, you are still not to follow what the pagans do. None of that stuff ever changed when he put it out in the commandments a long time ago. It still stayed the same. They stood on the word of Elohim. So here it is, they're in the fiery furnace, and it said that they fell down, bound in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astounded, and he rose up in haste, rose up real quick, and spake and said unto his counselors, did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? And they answered and said unto the king, true, O king. Yeah, we only put 3 of them in there. He answered and said, lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. They're not burned, and the form of the 4th looks like the son of Elohim. Here it is, because when you're in a fire, there is a glow about anything that you put in a fire. It surrounds it with a glow. So here it is, you see 3 figures plus an extra figure with a glow about them. Not being consumed, not withering away, not that you see in their flesh being removed off of their bodies and just the bone being left, but you see a wholehearted man in there. You see full flesh on them, and they're still fully clothed in the fiery furnace. And you are astonished. This is an amazement. So much an amazement that you had to look to the people that was next to you to make sure you weren't seeing things, to make sure they seeing what you seeing. So here it is. They agree, and yeah, we see that same thing. And he was like amazed off the whole thing. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, ye servants of the Most High Elohim, come forth and come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. So here it is. They were basically just hanging out in there until he called them out. Notice he didn't go past the threshold of those flames like those guards that he sent down to cast them in. He only went so far and called them from a distance and asked them to come out because he knew that they hadn't been consumed. And now at this moment, he's acknowledging the Most High. He's acknowledging Elohim. It's amazing how we got to see the miracles before that we can acknowledge that Elohim is the true Elohim, that he is the Most High God, that he is the most powerful one out there. Why do you have to go through situations in order for you to acknowledge that? Because we've always been in an environment that needs to see before we believe. So there are times God takes you through those situations where you have to see, but you don't want to have to see in the midst of your hurt. That's a different type of seeing. See, in the midst of their situation, they weren't hurt. They were being protected. I'd rather see the miracle of God and be protected in the midst of the moment than to see the miracle of God in the midst of my hurting moment. That's a totally different trial right there. That's a totally different situation. In the midst of your hurt, that's not saying you're going to come out of that hurt. That's just saying, okay, you were allowed to see and you still had to endure. Same thing was going to happen with judgment. You're going to see all the things of Yahuwah come to pass. You're going to see all the things that were already told to you, that were already forespoken, come to pass. But now at this moment, because you finally saw, now you want to say, wait a minute, I need to get my life right. Or now you want to say, I kind of felt like it was that way, but I was unsure. And everybody around me was telling me all these other things that was leading to a destination that was touching my inner feeling, that was making me feel like I was missing some stuff. So I started running towards those areas instead. You're ending up in a lost area at that moment. These are also things that are already foretold, that this is what's going to happen. When I talk about the great falling away, it ain't a great falling away of the world. It's a great falling away of the people that are in the kingdom of God. Those who are supposed to be leading people in saving are going to be the ones who are going to be getting lost along the way. Because they're searching for a feeling. They're searching for another type of power trying to tap in, but they're tapping in by the wrong ways of tapping in. They don't feel like it's wrong because now they're trying to get the things of this world. They want wealth. They want prosperity in a whole different way. They want happiness in areas where happiness really ain't supposed to become. What happened to we're not supposed to put all our eggs in the basket of this particular world, because we're supposed to be setting our sights on the kingdom and the things that are above. We are no longer searching for the kingdom. We're searching for the pleasure in this world and trying to live out the best life that we can while we're down here. When you've done all that, what you gonna do when the next moment comes? When the time for you to actually answer for all your stuff comes? You're not supposed to be going through all that stuff. If you lose your way to the mark, how can you lead those over who really need you at the moment when you're supposed to be there for them? Each one of us have a group of people that we're supposed to lead. Each one of us have a group of people that we've been through a certain type of situation, that we're able to give them clarity and understanding about that situation so that they don't end up down those roads. But if you end up going down that road and getting lost and not learning the lesson that you were supposed to learn and passing the test, because for every test there is a testimony. If you don't pass the test, you don't get to your testimony. If you don't get to your testimony, then you can't help the next person that really needs you, that needed your testimony at that particular time. Here it is, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were facing a test. Their test was to show whether they would bow in the midst of everything that was going on around them. The first pressure that was going on around them was peer pressure of their fellow friends and the group that they were among. The peer pressure that they're bowing and I'm still standing. You know how much that signals you out when you still standing and everybody else is kneeling before this image that you yourself are supposed to be kneeling to because of the decree that went out? But at that moment, their life was no longer their own. Their sacrifice was to show the world that was around them that God is the only true Elohim. He is the only true one. He is the deliverer. You have to believe and trust that he is the deliverer in order to be able to make it through the trials and the tribulations that we go through in this life. Even though it looked bad, they still did not shake. They still did not wither down. They still did not give in, which they had opportunities to give in. Remember, the king brought them before him just so they could bow down to him. But they chose at that moment not to bow, not to give in. And as always, family, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you have any comments or concerns or questions about what I just spoke on, feel free to talk about how it may have touched your life or situations that you have been in that might have been similar to those situations where you were looked at to worship either a situation or a person and they wanted you to bow down to a certain type of situation. Feel free to comment on those things. Shalom.